Realms of the Underdark is a 1996 anthology edited by J. Robert King. It is about the same size as other Forgotten Realms anthologies, but with fewer stories, and so they're longer. There are only 5 this time around. Of course, for those unfamiliar, Forgotten Realms is a Dungeons and Dragons campaign setting, actually being the most popular in a way, as it's the default for the current 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons, and there's also more books set in the Forgotten Realms than any other setting. So this starts with a publishing house in Waterdeep, a complement to TSR called Tim Waterdeep Limited or something like that, or TWL, that's published Cormyr, a novel in the realms apparently. The author being Greenwood Grubb, which is a joke obviously, as Cormyr, a novel, I think was not out yet, was coming out soon, and it was published or written by Ed Greenwood and Jeff Grubb. There's also Volo's Guides are published by them too. It's pretty interesting, very fun, very realms and quirky, as the owner is named Justin Tim. Brian Thompson wrote it, and it is set in 1367 DR apparently. Oh, and I say Justin Tim because that's what it looks like, but it's obviously Justin Time as well. Mark Anthony gives us a Driss story to start, The Fires of Narbindal, a test to see if he could write a novel in the series. He starts with a smaller story. And he did write one, actually, after this novel, but it was never published. I actually did a whole separate video on that back in December or so. This more specifically follows Zach Nathan, as Driss as a child at the time. So this would kind of fit for those reading Homeland, if you wanted like a little excursion. Yeah, I don't know. Zach is the weapon master of House Doradin and Driss's father and trainer, though Driss is too young to begin training at this point, which means he only is essentially equivalent. He is essentially equivalent in skill to blade to Driss, and also has more of a conscience in the wolf worshippers of Menzo Barons, and of course that's when Driss is older, so not right now in this story. I won't generalize all the Drow as evil, of course, but most that we get in the stories are. Narwindal is essentially the sorceress clock of the city. Being in the Underdark, this helps the inhabitants of the city know what time it is. The affairs turn to Malice as she wishes to go from 9th to 8th house of the city to gain a seat on the council. They use the festival of the founding as a ploy to celebrate 5,000 years of the city's existence. Malice specifically wants Lolth, who visits in disguise the city during this event, to grace her house with a visit. Driss is a child at this point and becomes embroiled in the search for the dagger of Menzo Bara, the weapon of the supposed founder of the city. A Yaklal has told Malice of this weapon's and its status as an artifact. The whole story of evil is as cartoony as Salvatore's writing of the Drow. The addition of Jailing Fane, the Spider Mage, was nice. Malice is still a terrible name. It also doesn't suffer from too much action or juvenile philosophy. But I do think fans of Driss should enjoy it, and those not fans may not enjoy it, but you might want to try it out and see anyway, since it is a little different, right? It's Driss, but not written by Salvatore. And I'm not a big fan of Driss, if you didn't know. It was going to be part 5, actually, this novel that was written. It was going to be part 5 of The Legacy of the Drow, and would have been released between Passage to Dawn and The Silent Blade. Since it almost happened before, though the novel line has ended, Driss has not. So it could happen again. We could have another author that writes Driss at some point in the future. The second is A Slow Day in Skullport by Ed Greenwood. I previously read this, as it's in the Best of the Realms too. It's a nice change of pace since Drow are not key here. Durnan, which Greenwood describes as a thinking man's Conan, and Mert, which is John Falstaff and Glencannon mixed of sorts, are the stars of the show, both lords of Waterdeep. The story is in Skullport, a city beneath Waterdeep, and it is 1358 DR, during the same time as Spellfire. It is a romp, very Liberian sword and sorcery and feel. If you see Waterdeep as Linkmar and Beholder as an eldritch sorceress evil of sorts, Asper, Mert's wife, who is somewhat rare in his stories, makes an appearance, and Halaster, Elminster, and Illithid's Oh My. Story 3 is Rite of Blood by Elaine Cunningham. I had grown used to her short stories of Danilo and Erlen, so was surprised when Lyriel Bonray was the star hero. This is the protagonist of the Starlight and Shadows trilogy that I've been meaning to read forever because I think Cunningham will do the job better than Salvatore. And I wasn't disappointed. While largely evil, I found Cunningham does do a good job making it feel less like a cartoon than Salvatore. And Anthony has the same problem in that story above. We do get things like the Twilight Traders at Mantle Dirith, some Menzo Barons in the story, and Xandra Shobalar, Mistress of Magic, um, her house, and she taught Lyrio Bonray. Xandra is going to get a target for Lyrio's blooding, which is a coming-of-age ritual where she is to track and kill an intelligent sapient creature. The target is a red wizard or Thay, one of the school of necromancy. This is an overly cunning and knowledgeable prey for the prodigy wizard Lyriel. That's because Xandra wants him to be an opponent that will actually kill the young Drow, because she is jealous of Lyriel's talent and beauty, for that matter, too. So she has golden eyes, just as Drist has lavender, compared to the normal red of the Drow. She is the daughter of Gromp, of all people, and she seems more in line with the wilds of most Drow than Drist, but this is also a rather young Drow, and I'll have to read to see how her character changes or where her story goes. I imagine this is somewhat of a prequel, I'm not really sure. Roger E. Moore's Sea of Ghosts follows a deep gnome and a Darrow, once slaves of the Drow. They return to destroy an egg they were once forced to bury. It is set beneath the Eastern Shar, which is the first time I've read any fiction set there, so that was appreciated, as was the little-known dwarf settlement of Rorug's Hall. Wykar is the gnome and Geppo is the Darrow. The latter is more tame than normal compared to other Darrow. He doesn't act in great violence, and he doesn't lie. It's a nice outsider Darrow take, and the first I've read of them since Venom in Her Veins, by Tim Pratt, I think it was, some years ago. As it's not surprising when a sea setting in the Underdark, Kuatora are antagonists. I was not super interested in this one at first, but the magic rings and interesting quests and companions piqued my curiosity eventually. It's a rather disturbing and touching ending, though. And then Story 3 is Volo Does Menzo by Brian M. Thompson. At the time of this release, he was managing editor of the fiction at TSR, and since the last piece of work is a fictional afterword, just like the foreword at the publishing house of TWL, Thompson does 3 of the 7 sections within. The last of the 5 stories, though, is about Volvamp Garm and a tavern master from Skullport named Woodhouse or something like that. This ties into the foreword and afterword, and also into the Once Around the Realms, a story of Volo traveling all around Faerun, written unfortunately by Thompson. Specifically, it's a trip to Menzo Berezin for Volo's guide to the Underdark. Of course, this is as slaves. The story is fun and short. There's reference to Morpheus, which felt out of place in some exceptionally dumb Drow. The long-winded piece of fiction comment made me chuckle, though. And then back at the publishing house, Just in Time and TWL wasn't used over much. He has a similar role in the Realms of Magic, and is referenced in Realms of Mystery, Realms of the Arcane, and The Mage and the Iron Mask. But I have not read those yet. Also, there's no R.A. Salvatore in this collection, which is surprising since he's the poster boy of the Underdark. I'm kind of glad he wasn't, though, and you still get Drist, which I think, again, fans of the series will probably enjoy. It is very much too focused on Menzo Berenzan and Skullport. It's fun overall, though. I mean, I do like Forgotten Realms, so I generally find Forgotten Realms fiction to be worth my time, regardless if it's the greatest or not. I wonder if it's only focused on these 2 because those are like big areas that already had some development in the Forgotten Realms as far as the Underdark was concerned, and they just didn't want to spread it too thin. But it would have been nice to see some stuff from other parts of the realms. And again, you do kind of with the Eastern Shar one. That's about it. So anyways, Liam from Liam's Lyceum. I will catch you next time.